On this episode, I'm going to be talking about how attention is the key to any intentional change. Hi guys, and welcome to episode I haven't got a clue of the Your Progress is Our Passion podcast. In fact, with the episode numbers, I actually cocked it up 2 episodes ago because I looked at my sheet wrong, and this should have been rule number 2, whereas the one we got last time around became rule number 2, which should have been rule number 3. It's a big complicated ordeal, but it's okay, it's fine. I think we're around about episode 36, 37, something like that. So today I want to talk about what is technically my second rule of mindset, but in the order if you've listened to them, it will come across as the third, and that is that attention is the key, is the foundation of all deliberate change. Okay, this comes down to the fact that in order to fully change something, that first of all, we need to actually bring our attention to the thing that we need to change and the ways in which we are doing it. A lot of times this comes down to this idea of the 4 stages of mastery, and I'm not sure if I've talked about these on the podcast before, but I'll just briefly recap on them now. Whenever we learn a new skill, and by a new skill I mean not just kind of playing the piano, playing football, learning a language, that kind of thing, I mean anything that we do regularly, we have these 4 stages. The first stage is unconsciously incompetent. Quite simply, we can't do it, but we don't even know we can't do it. Okay, that's the stage before we've tried to do something. Can I walk on a tightrope? Probably not, but I don't know for definite until I try. Then we go into consciously incompetent. Okay, this is where we've had a couple of tries and we know we suck at it. We know we're no good. We can't do it yet. With a little bit of practice, we move into the next phase, which is consciously competent. Now, this is, I can do the thing, but I still need to think about it while I'm doing it. I wouldn't want to multitask. I wouldn't want to engage with anything else while I'm doing it. I need to bring my attention and be deliberate to what I'm doing. And then the 4th stage is unconsciously competent. So this is that whole phase where you can just do stuff on autopilot. I could maybe play guitar and have a conversation at the same time, or you can drive your car to a route that you know really, really well, and you might not even be conscious of the fact that you're doing it. Now, the problem is a lot of our bad habits have gone into this unconsciously competent stage. So we're actually doing the bad habit before we realize we're even doing it. So we're not even aware that it's happening. A person who maybe is really good at biting their nails, and if we look back to the first episode in this sequence of we get better at the things we do often, if we look at a person who's really good at biting their nails, they may have already bitten 4 of their nails off before they even realize it. If you're that person who's driving home and you're not aware of what's going on around you, you're just kind of like on that autopilot, if something happened in that situation that snapped you back to reality, like someone stepped out in front of the car, suddenly you'd be present again. So it's not that we are completely absent from this, it's just that we're sort of, certain parts of our brain are working on this autopilot. So a lot of the habits we don't want to keep, for example, turning to the bottle for stress, like binge eating, things like that, we get into this, what we think of as this kind of haze, this period where we've not got attention. So the trick here is actually to realize we do have attention. If your phone rang whilst you're in the middle of binge eating, you would hear it. If someone steps out in front of the car whilst you're driving, you would see it and you would react to it, and it snaps you back into reality. And one of the things we need to get better at doing is with the habits that we don't want, we want to start bringing that attention to that moment, because chances are we've had these habits for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So we've got really bloody good at them. We've rehearsed these habits more than a lot of the things in our lives that we want to be better at. We've spent more time I've spent more time being good at depression and good at anxiety than probably playing the piano and playing computer games combined. And that's a lot of bloody time. So as a result, we need to bring that attention to what is there, to how we are acting, to what we are doing, to the things that we are doing to actually keep us in that rut, going on that same direction. And this is why I say that attention is the foundation to any deliberate change. Things can change by accident. So the deliberate part is important here. If we want to deliberately change something, then what we need to do is we need to bring attention to what's there. What are the components to this? If you wanted to deliberately change the outcome of a cake, you would, for example, look at how many grams of sugar are going into it. What happens if I change that to this? What happens if I replace that with something different? And you would start having attention to that factor and start making a deliberate change. Now let's look at this in relation to exercise, steps, or your diet, for example. Pedometers, why they became so popular for a little while, is because people, we say there's 10,000 steps, but we don't have a clue how many of these steps we're doing. We don't go in our head 1, 2, 3, 4 every time we're walking, do we? Instead, we just assume we're doing around about 2,000 or 3,000, 7,000, whatever it may be. Pedometers allowed us to bring that attention to that. And once we have that attention, we can then go, right, how can I now improve this? How can I make this more? If it's on 7,000 and you want to get it to 10,000, how can I make that better? Where are the opportunities for me to go and get some extra steps in? With our food, one of the questions I ask on my PT sign-up sheet, my onboarding form, is roughly how many calories do you eat in a day? And I also ask people to give me a rough idea of what a day's food looks like. And for me, those two numbers, that number and what that food is, don't ever really truly add up. It's not like someone says, I do 1,800 and they give me a perfect example of 1,800 calories in the what a day's food looks like. And then what I will often do is put all of what they've said as their daily food through my database and then send it back and say, look, there's what you're actually eating. And sometimes people are drastically under eating, and sometimes people are drastically overeating. But if you don't know where the start point is, if you've not brought any attention to it, then you can't really implement a change. It's like to say, I need to eat more. Like, it's quite vague, but if you kind of have a rough idea of what you eat and you just need to eat more, it doesn't have to be specifically down to calories. If you have the same 4 meals a day, like every single day, and you say, I'm going to throw an extra shake in there, and a protein bar, a piece of chicken, a couple of extra rice cakes, whatever it may be. A Muller rice, brilliant after training, love it. Not endorsed by Muller rice. So you start saying, I'm going to put this one extra thing in. You have to have the attention of what's there to start off with in order to do that. And the same is true with things like our anxiety, things like depression, okay? Bringing attention to it. What is my anxiety trying to tell me? What am I actually panicking about? What are the things that I'm worrying about? How many of these things are real worries? How many of these things are ridiculous worries? Is there anything I can prepare for? Are there ways in which I can actually do things to alleviate this anxiety? Is my anxiety if your anxiety is trying to get you to be more prepared for a presentation you've got to do, for example, then a really good idea would just be to go and get more prepared for the presentation. Because if you're not going to, then the choices are get prepared, relax about the fact that you're going to get prepared, and that should be the only choice. But unfortunately we tend to take the third one. I'm going to obsess over the fact that I'm not prepared until I actually have no time left to prepare, and that is the tendency to go with anxiety. With depression, it's like, what is the depression trying to tell you? What in your life now needs to improve? What is it about your current situation that you are not happy with? What is it about your current relationship with yourself that you're not happy with? How could this be improved? What is the internal dialogue? What are the things that you're saying to yourself? If a friend was to say those things to you, what would be your response? Would you say that to somebody else? One of the things that I really like to bring people's attention to is, what would be your definition of someone else winning? What does somebody else have to do in order to be enough in your eyes? What does somebody else have to do in order to win the day in your eyes? Because I can guarantee that your barometer, your benchmark for what another person has to do in order to win is a hell of a lot lower than the ridiculously high standards that you set for yourself. I'm going to finish on one little point as to why that might be the case. Just because I think this ties in really nicely. I'm going to talk about negativity bias, which is something that I could do an entire episode on, right? But I want to show you just how easily our minds go to the negative. So we set the bar for ourselves. We set the bar for failure really low and the bar for success really high with ourselves. We don't tend to do it with other people. However, if I was to say to you that two people are having a bet, one of them says, I think it's going to be sunny tomorrow. The other one says, I think it's going to rain for tomorrow. And at 2:10, it rains for 15 minutes. Which one of them was right? Which one of them wins the bet? Now, if you're honest about this, and I know that this is what the vast majority of you are thinking, because when I tell this story to people face to face, I see the reaction in their eyes. If you're honest about this, you think that the guy who said it's going to rain wins, because it rained for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it may be. The barometer for success, the benchmark for success for the person with the positive outcome has to be the entire day was sunny in order for him to win the bet. Whereas one single minute of rain is all it takes for the other guy to win. And that's the way our brain's wired. It's to notice the negative and to give more value to the negative than the positive. Because in the past, the negatives would have got us killed. So bear that in mind, because you're going to have to override that. And if you can bring attention to the fact that your negative opinions of yourself, the unrealistically high standards that you're setting to win, the unrealistically low standards you're setting for a failure, if you can bring your attention to all of that, then begin to slowly unpack that one step at a time and move towards a more productive way of thinking. Lower that standard of what it takes to win. Raise that standard of what it takes to lose. Listen to the negative dialogue you're giving yourself and realize that, you know what, you wouldn't take that shit from someone else, so you don't have to take it from you. And that's it. I'm leaving it there. At the time this goes up, it should be Wednesday, May the 2nd. We've got 10 more days until myself and my team run Europe's Toughest Mudder. Really sorry to keep banging on about this, but it's super important to me, and I would love for you guys to help me support the charity campaign against living miserably calm. If you want to do that, please head to www.justgiving.com/Dave does ETM, as in Europe's Toughest Mudder. Please head over there, give £1, give a penny, give 40 quid, whatever you can give. It all makes a big difference, and it helps us get one step closer to that goal to help those people. Leaving it there. Your progress is my passion as always, and I will be back next week. Oh, nice little treat for you next week with the super awesome Kelly Wall, who is going to be giving us a much more positive spin on the idea of diet clubs than what is currently going around out there. And I'm going to get loads of flack about it, so I'm excited about that. Your progress is my passion. I will see you all soon. Ciao.